So we're going to start this video just by looking at any quadratic equation. Now we all should know that this graph's, what kind of graph? It's a parabola. It's a U-shaped curve. Does this open up or down? What's the A value? A value is 1, which means positive 1 means it opens up. And we've learned in the past that the A value of positive 1 from the vertex has the pattern of 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. So anyways, we already know that this is a parabola that's opening up. It's a regular U-shaped curve. I could find the vertex if I wanted to by doing negative b over 2 times a, and that'll give me the x value. Then I could get that x value and plug it into my x values to find my y value. I hope that kind of makes sense to everybody. But right here, they're asking us to rewrite this standard form into vertex form. Okay? So what is vertex form? That's vertex form right there. Y equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. So obviously this one up here is not in vertex form. It's in standard form. It's ax squared plus bx plus c. But we need to look like this, like a binomial squared. Okay? So there's a couple of ways of doing this. One way is to complete the square. Now, this is the method I explained yesterday. It might be a little confusing to you guys because normally we have an equation like x squared minus 6x minus 10 equals 0, and then we add 10 and we add 10. But we're not going to do that this time. What we're going to do is just move this negative 10, just move it over a little. Okay, I'm just going to get the negative 10 and now move it over a little. So what am I going to have? I'm going to have x squared minus 6x space minus 10. Okay, and of course I still have the equals on the left side and the y in front. Is everybody cool with that? Okay, so now I'm going to complete the square. So how do I complete the square? I look at my b value. So this is what I want to do. I want to pretend that I'm just going to focus in on that. I want to forget about the negative 10 for a little while. Okay, so what am I going to do here? I'm going to divide the negative 6 by 2, half of b, and then square it. What's half of negative 6? Negative 3. What's negative 3 squared? Positive 9. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have just magically added 9 to an equation. There's an equal sign right here, ladies and gentlemen. So, if I add 9 to this side of my equation, I either have to add 9 to this side of my equation, or to keep the balance, to keep the equality, I also have to subtract 9 on the same side of my equation. Does that make sense? No? Okay. Let me try to explain it this way. Do you guys agree that 3 plus 2 equals 5? Yeah? Okay. Now what if I magically added 4 to this side? I would either have to magically add 4 to this side also to keep the balance, to keep the equality, or I would have to take the 4 away with the plus negative 4 over here on this side also to maintain the balance. Okay, that probably wasn't the best example. Let's go even more simple here. 3 equals 3, right? Yeah? Now, what if I added 1 to this side? Is that going to be a true statement? No, it's not. Unless I do what? Unless I add 1 to the other side, or unless I also subtract 1 right after adding 1 to that same side. Are you guys getting it now? Yeah? Kinda? Okay, so it's either when you add 1 to one side of an equation, you add 1 here, you have to add 1 over here. But if you don't add 1 over here, and if you added 1 right here, then you also have to subtract that same 1 to keep the equality. I hope that's making sense. So let's go back to the problem of completing the square that we had going on up here. So we had a standard form equation. I moved the 10 over, just made some space for it. There's my space. And then I focused in on the x squared minus 6x with the space, and I want that perfect c value. So what I do is take half of b, which is -3, square it, and I got 9. That's my perfect c value. So I magically added 9 to the equal sign. To the right side of the equal sign. So I either add 9 over here, which I'm not going to do, because I want the y by itself. So what am I going to do? I'm going to subtract 9 over here to maintain the balance of the equation. I hope that makes sense. Again, I added 9. You can't just add 9 to an equation. It won't be equal anymore. If you add 9 here, you have to either add 9 over here or immediately subtract 9 on the same side. Does that make sense? So now that we understand how to complete the square, we're going to write the binomial squared right here, and that'll be x minus just half of b is -3. And over here where you do the -10 with the -9, that's a -19. And you have a y right in front. And ladies and gentlemen, that's vertex form. So you had to rewrite from standard form to vertex form. That's what you do. Let's practice another one. Okay, so we know that this is a quadratic trinomial equation in standard form. Let's rewrite it to vertex form. First thing to do would be to make space for your new c value. So I'm just going to get this 10 and move it over to the side. I'm going to have x squared minus 8x space. We have the plus 10 right here. But whatever I add right here, I'm also going to have to subtract on the same side. Because after all, this is an equation with the y on the left side. So yeah, we're going to put a plus 16. Half of -8 is -4, and if you square it, it gives you a positive 16. But you can't just magically add 16 to some side of the equation, to one side of the equation. You're going to have to subtract it also to maintain the balance. Now, the whole purpose of doing that is to be able to complete the square with these first 3 terms, because it's now a perfect square quadratic trinomial. You have a -4 right there. The -4 came from half of this guy. And out here at the end you have a plus, -6, or plus -6 if you want. So there's your vertex form equation. What do you guys think? Easy? Or not easy, but it just takes a little bit of practice. Now, let's say you absolutely hate completing the square method. Okay? Let me write down the same equation. Y equals x squared minus 8x plus 10. Let's say you absolutely hate it. And you want to write it in vertex form because they're asking you to write it in vertex form. Well, if you know what vertex form is, y equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k, which you should have this memorized, by the way. What do you really need to write an equation in vertex form? You need the vertex, the h, the k, and also your a value. The a value is the coefficient that's in front of any quadratic equation, whether it's in standard form or vertex form. So, ladies and gentlemen, do we know the a value of this guy? What's the a value of this guy? It's 1, right? There's an invisible 1 right here. So we already know our a value. Our a value is 1. Okay? Now, what about h and k? Well, we don't see a graph. We don't see the parabola. We can't see the vertex. But we know how to find the vertex of a standard form quadratic trinomial equation. The vertex is really a coordinate, x and y, and the vertex x value is found by doing -b over 2 times a. You guys remember that? So, of course, we put parentheses there, and now let's plug in our values. Our b value is -8. Our a value is 1. So we're really going to have 8 over 2, which is really 4. Yes? That's our vertex x value. How about the y value? How do I find the y value once I already have my x value? You plug it in. So I'm going to take this 4, which is the x, and I'm going to plug it in to my x's right here and right here. Okay? So let me rewrite this thing, but instead of x's, let me put parentheses, and then I'm going to plug in that 4. So there's my equation with parentheses. I'm going to plug in the 4 right in here. Now I'm going to work it out to get my y value. This is 16. This is minus 32. This is plus 10. So I get negative 16 plus 10. I get negative 6 is my y value. So why did I find my vertex? Because I know that when I want it in vertex form, the h and k are really my vertex x and y values. So ladies and gentlemen, knowing the a, the h, and the k, I'm able to plug it all into here and have my vertex form equation. So this is what I want to do. My a is 1, my h is 4, my k is negative 6. And all I'm going to do is plug it into my vertex form equation. So instead of y equals a, I'm going to put y equals 1, parenthesis, x minus h. That's going to be a minus 4, and then close parentheses squared, and then plus k. Plus k, what is my k value? Negative 6. So this is another way of doing it. It's up to you on how you feel more comfortable on doing it. If you're really good at finding vertex in a standard form equation using x equals negative b over 2a, and then plugging it in to find y, then you could find the vertex, which is h and k, and you could use the a value from the a value of your standard form equation, and then plug it all into vertex form.